Hi everybody, you're very welcome back to Red Business in Focus with Cork's Local Enterprise Offices, where we're bringing you all the business news, inspiring entrepreneurs and sharing business success stories. This week we have Hayley Milthorpe from the Cultured Food Company in the hot seat. Hayley began studying nutrition and, once qualified as a nutritional therapist, left college with a passion for using real food as a medicine, and so began her love affair with fermented foods, and the Cultured Food Company was born. Hayley, you're very welcome. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you.
We've got some examples here, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, but we always begin on this show by asking you to condense your life's work into 30 seconds. So you've 30 seconds to talk with the company starting from now.
Well, as you said, I qualified as a nutritional therapist and was incredibly passionate about using food as a medicine and came across fermented foods. It's an ancient type of food preservation, and I discovered that these foods are naturally rich in beneficial bacteria, which is a fantastic way of supporting your gut health, your immune system and your mental health. I began making these foods at home in my kitchen, and I realised at the time that these kind of foods were not available to people in Ireland, and I realised that it was an opening for a business.
Okay, very good. Nearly 30 seconds. Excellent, well done. So it isn't the type of food that's widely available, we know that. And I'm looking at the food here, and you're talking about sauerkraut. It's not a huge foodstuff in Ireland. So was it a bit of a risk trying to introduce something we don't necessarily always eat?
Yes, it was. It was an incredibly niche product back in 2014, and many people didn't actually know what it was. But
for the uninitiated now, what is sauerkraut? Because I kind of still fall into that category. It's cabbage, isn't it?
It's basically shredded cabbage mixed with sea salt, packed into barrels where it sits for several months fermenting. And the bacteria that are naturally present on the vegetables, they start breaking down the starches, releasing lactic acid, which drops the pH, and that's how the vegetables are preserved. And in the process, the bacterial content and the yeast content flourish, and it creates a highly probiotic food.
So in other words, it produces the stuff that helps your gut and your microbiome to stay in good shape.
That's right, yeah.
Is it something you ate a lot when you were younger?
No, not at all. It wasn't until I became interested in fermented foods after studying nutrition that I realised that fermented vegetables were one of these food sources. So no, I'd never eaten it before, but I quickly fell in love with the flavour of it. Fermented vegetable products, they have a very strong taste, similar to a pickled food, but they don't contain any vinegar, naturally sour, and it's definitely an acquired taste. But people find that once they begin eating these foods that they develop a taste for them.
Now, you must have had great crack in the kitchen designing the products though, did you? Coming up with the taste that you'd like to give out. And I think you were half thinking as well about your family when you were putting this together. Would the family eat it?
Well, that's it. I was kind of having, I really like experimenting in the kitchen. I've always loved cooking. So yeah, it was fantastic trying out all the different types of fermented foods because, it's not just vegetables, you've got the yogurts, kefir, kombucha, sourdough breads, but it just so happened that I settled on vegetables. And my kids, they enjoyed eating it, family and friends. And I also saw, whilst practicing as a nutritional therapist, I saw firsthand the health benefits that people experienced once they began eating these foods.
Well, you were ahead of your time because this is the direction of travel now, isn't it? That people are really conscious of the foods that they eat and like to eat the good stuff. What's in the bottle though? I'm intrigued as to what might be in the bottle.
This is beet kvass. It's I think it originates from Russia, and you can get different types of kvass. You can get kvass made with rye bread. This is made with beetroots, and it's the same process as when you're making sauerkraut, but this time we're using beetroots and we're putting them into a barrel with a brine where it sits for several months. And again, the bacteria and yeast that are present on the beetroots work their magic.
It makes me think of a grand distiller. I mean, the other conversations I have like this are people who try to make whiskey, that they have to leave it ferment in a barrel, except you're leaving beetroot and cabbage ferment in the barrel instead.
Yeah.
There's no speed involved here. You have to do it right.
And it's a bit of an art form. It can yield unpredictable outcomes. So you have to be really careful in the production that you try and keep everything uniform and try and control the environment as much as possible. But at the end of the day, every beetroot, every cabbage that's pulled up out of the ground, it's grown in different soil. It's got different bacteria and yeast on it. And what we do is wild fermentation. So a lot of the more commercial fermentation companies, they would use a starter, they would use something, they would add in cultures, whereas we completely rely on the bacteria and yeast that are present naturally.
So uniformity isn't your thing, because there might be little variations, but that's because it's the natural.
Like there's no crazy variations, but every now and then something might be slightly different.
But life is very bland. I mean, the idea that you have the same taste out of the same bottle every time, that's very bland. You'd like to shake it up a small little bit. Yeah. What I love about your story, Hayley, is the fact that you went and did something in college, you found something you liked, you experimented in your own kitchen, you got it done. What advice do you give to people who might think that there's something like this in them? Who do they turn to for support, and how can they get their product out there?
Well, I would say that to go to the local enterprise office if you're looking for any kind of business support, because from day one they have been incredibly supportive, and if I've ever needed any advice, they've assigned me a mentor, and they've been really instrumental in the success of my company. For anybody who thinks that they have an idea, I would say do your research and give it a go. And if you fail, which hopefully you won't, but if you fail, there'll be something to be learnt from it, and then go back and try again.
Absolutely. Well, you learn how to fail faster as you get older anyway. But the thing is, you've managed to perfect it, and here it is literally in canned and bottled form in front of us. Yeah. The website for people who want to look you up and who can find out where they can get the product?
culturefoodco.ie.
Very good. Hayley Milthorpe, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Jonathan.
That's it for this week's episode of Red Business in Focus. Now, this week is Local Enterprise Week. So whether you are a new business or a startup or an established small business, I hope you're making good use of the innovative workshops that are taking place right across Cork. Join us next week, though, for more on Red Business in Focus, with thanks to Cork's Local Enterprise Offices.